One of the most common questions I get from you guys, and it's a question I asked myself when I was getting into personal finance, is how can I just get started with money from literally level 0? How can I just wake up one day and want to get my finances together and actually do it? So while in this video I'm going to tell you, step by step how to do that, you have to know the why part. You have to wake up one day, know you want to do it, and know why you want to do it so that when you do it, it lasts for your whole life. And getting to know your why means understanding your identity around money. It also means being okay with the mistakes you've made in the past with money, accepting that it's history and that now you're moving forward and making new habits and making new goals that are going to benefit you long term. You're allowed to have made mistakes. I've made plenty of mistakes and I talk about them all the time on this channel. So the absolute basics of personal finance, and I think the must-dos for anyone, especially for someone beginning at level 0, are all about having an emergency fund, maximizing your pension, making sure you're consumer debt free, and also taking advantage of automations and basically just thinking less. So to start with your emergency fund, we're going to start off with a figure that's 3 months of your absolute essential expenses. And a way that I like to try and think about how I'd work this out and how I did work this out was just imagine you lose your job right now. What are the expenses that you have to pay regardless of not having an income? So obviously you're not going to be paying for the things you kind of want to do, like socializing and maybe the nice to haves and the convenience, but things like food, rent, bills, utilities, and anything else that's due on a monthly basis that you cannot not pay, those make up the amounts that would then go into your emergency fund. So total what that is for 1 month, multiply it by 3, and you'll have your starting place for an emergency fund. And this would be a goal amount to start with. I think for someone that's starting out, it's a really nice number, and 3 months is a decent enough padding, I think, to give you time to really focus on it and get into the habit of building it out. The second thing you want to do is look at your pension. The reason why pensions are really important is because they're essentially investments most of the time, if not all of the time. So the earlier you start and the more you maximize that, you'll end up being in a better position when you're older. And not only that, with pensions, especially from a UK perspective, especially if you work for a company and you get paid via the PAYE system, your employer will either match or provide some kind of contribution to your pension pot, depending on how big your contribution is. You're essentially getting free money into this pot that will grow over time and compound over time. So making sure that you're maximizing this benefit that you're getting for working is super important, and it's something that we all forget about because the word pension can be sometimes off-putting, and it's always one of those tasks that you end up just putting off for the next week or the next month. But maybe just carve out some time in your calendar to find out what your pension is even invested in, how much you're contributing, how much the kind of matching service works at your company. And if you don't work for a company, carve out some time to research a pension that you could self-invest into as well. If you've had multiple jobs, I'd also recommend having a look at the pension tracing service to just figure out if you've got any pensions lying around that you could find and combine. Now for pensions, the kind of ideal figure to be sitting at is half of your age as a percentage, as a total contribution. So you can incorporate your employer's contribution or match into this. So if you were 25, you'd be wanting to contribute 12.5% into your pension. And if your employer was matching your contribution, you would want to each be contributing 6.25%. And by virtue of kind of checking what you're contributing to your pension and the details about your pension, have a look at your payslip if you're also being paid via PAYE from a company as well, and just check that you're on the right tax code. The standard code for basic rate taxpayers is 1275L, so making sure that you're on a standard code or a code that you recognize and that you think you should be on, therefore you're paying the right amount of tax. And then just check things like your benefits and your actual payslip and the amount that you're being paid every month is being calculated correctly, because mistakes do happen and they won't get flagged for you. You have to find them. The third thing you want to have a look at and get into check is consumer debt. And this can be a really big one for some people. It really was for me. I got myself into a lot of debt during and after uni. And that was purely because of bad money mindset and just bad habits. And sometimes debt is so scary and overwhelming and it can be super hard to tackle head on. But tackling it as early as you can and chipping away at it is the best way to just try and have it move into the rearview mirror of life, leave it behind. So you want to make sure that you're aware of all the debt that you have. How many credit cards do you have? What are the balances that are outstanding? And what are the interest rates that are applicable to each of those balances? Write them down, work it out, and have a total figure that you can start from. Once you have this total figure, there are are different systems to try and tackle paying them down, but I would definitely have a little bit of a browse on YouTube and the internet for the different methods that you can use to tackle debt when actually paying. If you were someone starting from level 0, you have this figure of debt that you need to pay off, I would just start with a plan and make this plan work for you. If you want to have a target date that you want to be debt free on this plan, have that down. If there's only a target amount that you can put away to your debt every month, have that down as a goal as well. But make a plan for it and have it down in a calendar, in a notebook, on your laptop, on your phone, just so that now you're aware of how you can go from right now having all this debt to day X or whatever, having none of this debt and having paid it off. And you can see a clear path to get there, making the path as efficient as possible in terms of minimizing the interest that you're paying. That is something that you have to do via research, but having that path down and clear is something that you really want to do in order to try and get your finances in check. Now with steps 1, 2, and 3, you should hopefully have an idea of the amount of money you'll have going out periodically towards building an emergency fund, contributing to your pension, and also contributing to your debt if you have any. So the next step is something that you can either do in tandem or you can do once you've cleared down debt. It just depends on your kind of financial situation, if you can afford to do both. And there's literally no problem at all if you can, if you have to pick and choose. I had to pick and choose when I first got started. I had to just focus on the debt because I wanted that clear and out of the picture before I then started focusing on building savings and creating more value-based personal financial goals. The fourth thing is to focus on automating your savings and automating the things that you know are coming out. Now, automating is also known as paying yourself first, visualizing the fact that a lot of people will have their payslip come in, do their spending, socializing, events, whatever through the month, and then see that money in their bank account, which is not as high as they were hoping it would be, and then realizing that they can't save that much because they've spent it all. Whereas if you have that money come in and you immediately put something away first that's unavailable to spend, you've kind of paid yourself first before then going on to do your spending and whatever else it is that you want to do. And the best way you can pay yourself first without letting willpower or motivation get in the way of that is automating it. And automating it simply means setting up standing orders or automatic bank transfers, depending on what kind of bank account you have, that just transfers a portion out of whatever account it is that is your main account that you get paid into a separate one that you have no access to. And I think it's really important that you don't have access to the account that the money is going to, just so that you can, on a whim, in a weak moment, take that money back out again. So I would recommend setting up a different account that does not have a card associated to it and potentially doesn't even have digital banking, and setting up an automatic bank transfer into that account. And once it's automated, that automation will just run forever until you decide to change it. And then steps number 5 and 6 are kind of rinse and repeat cycles. Step number 5 is to try and get your 3-month emergency fund padded up to 6 months. I think 6 months is a great minimum amount to have for an emergency fund. 12 months would be ideal as well. You just never know what's going to happen these days. But hopefully from the habits you got from steps 1, 2, 3, and 4, you can now kind of increase the amount that goes towards your emergency fund and have it really serve its purpose as something that's there in case of true emergencies. Then the 6th step is also making sure that your pension is being maxed out. Because while I said that you can have, half of your age as a percentage as your ideal contribution, you can always work up to that stage as well, especially given the fact that we're getting our finances in check all at once in this video. We've got all these steps going on. If you have to do a little bit of each thing and then work up to your ideal figure, that's absolutely fine as well. And after we have this kind of big system set up where we've got our emergency fund being fed into, our debt being cleared, our pension being contributed into, and our automated savings going through, we can start to think about making more value-based personal goals by reviewing our budgets and seeing how much we have left after all of these things are happening, and then setting up things like sinking funds, stocks and shares, ISAs, and getting a bit more specific. I think emergency funds, automated savings, pensions, and having minimal consumer debt is the ideal starting place for anyone at level 0 personal finance game, and they make 4 really great, simple key focus points for people starting out. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.